I'm here with Tom and Carl, and we're joined now by White House correspondent Phil Wegmann. So, Phil, President Trump announced that he has a deal worked out with Harvard. He said that, quote, their sins are forgiven. Phil, you wrote about this for RCP. So is there really a deal here? And what concessions did Harvard have to make if there is a deal?
Well, as soon as President Trump made that admission in the Oval Office, and that's what it was, this was not part of a planned rollout. This was the president letting things out of the bag. I reached out to my sources over at the White House, the Department of Education, and also Harvard. And the message that I got back was literally stay tuned. That was from the White House. The Department of Education, they said that the secretary continues to negotiate to try and get a deal in the American people's best interest. So this is very much a work in progress. And the words from the president, I think that might be a bit aspirational. We'll have to wait and see. But the sketch that he delivered of a potential deal is very simple. Harvard pays the federal government $500 million, and Harvard agrees to operate a chain of trade schools to teach people everything from artificial intelligence to automotive engineering.
Trade school, Carl? A good plan?
Well, people have looked at education in this country and the workforce, think that the United States getting away from vocational education was a mistake. Education reformers believe this. Some liberals believe it. Conservatives believe it. Tom organized a charity golf tournament that's raised money for a foundation that sends kids to vocational schools, and there's not enough money in it, and it's just a great idea that Harvard would associate itself with it. If this happens, is a little less surprising than it seems. Harvard is the epitome of the opposite of that. The stereotype is snobby, head in the clouds, looks down on townies, but there are people at Harvard and Stanford who've been writing about this for years. And if this happens, it's actually a win-win situation, both for the president and for the university.
Phil, there is this 10-point memo, this Compact for American Excellence in Education, which came out yesterday or today. It's saying it's sort of a series of demands that the White House is making that colleges have to go along with. Is there any connection between that and what they're talking about? Because I got to say, this idea that the solution here to the problem of Harvard is that they've got to have a vocational school just is like, it seems like it has nothing to do with the White House's complaint about what they don't like about Harvard.
Yeah, initially the administration froze that $2.2 billion in federal research grants to Harvard over accusations that they didn't get their anti-Semitism problem in check. And by the way, Harvard has documented a lot of those problems and apologized for them already. But I don't think there's any coincidence that that compact is leaked to the Wall Street Journal right after Donald Trump says that a deal is imminent with Harvard. And the sort of behind the scenes baseball here is that there are two factions inside of the administration. There are some who say, look, this is our last chance to reform higher education. We have them on the ropes. We need to try and get long-term systemic reforms and restore a sort of more neutral Ivy Tower. Then there are others who are a little uncomfortable with the way that the federal government has been using its power. And they say, hey, if we can get a splashy settlement from Harvard, let's call it a day. And certainly, I mean, this is splashy. $500 million is nothing to sneeze at. But, Harvard, they have an endowment that's larger than, some smaller first world country's GDP. When I sat down with the education secretary, one thing that she was pretty adamant on, though, was that there would be some sort of independent monitor, not undifferent than the deal that was set up with Columbia University. Harvard has rejected that thus far. So we'll see if they accept this compact and if they accept someone in the form of an independent monitor looking over their shoulder.
Well, as a Princeton graduate, it gives me great joy to bash Harvard, although Princeton's not much better when it comes to some of the things that Harvard has been accused of. Look, I think the president's language here was unfortunate. Their sins are forgiven. That makes it seem like Harvard has made like full amends, right? And to Phil's point, I mean, and to your point, Andy, I thought the framing of the question is great. I mean, when this whole thing started, there are problems across the university system in this country, residing mainly in the humanities, but not exclusively limited to the humanities, where the professoriate's been captured by, left-wing radicals, quite frankly, and have been teaching anti-Semitic, anti-American, things for decades. And that was one of the things that I think people on the right hoped that the Trump administration was going to, get to the bottom of and try and root out and try and change in a fundamental way. And, the monitor, I mean, there was this idea that at least one of the initial things was that these universities would agree to be, I don't want to say protectorate, but put under the supervision of monitors from the federal government. And of course, all of the institutions, they decried this as, a breach of academic freedom. But they won't reform themselves, certainly. I mean, they've had plenty of chances and opportunity to do that and simply haven't done it. So I don't know that. I think Trump's sort of seems like he might be letting them off the hook here, and there won't be fundamental change and reform within the university system, and certainly not within Harvard. They're going to continue to, have radical leftists teaching in the humanities and probably teaching some pretty unsavory stuff to Harvard undergrads who are, footing in what is it now at Harvard, $100,000 a year. And I think, Harvard sort of leads the way for these other institutions. So I think this is not necessarily a great outcome.
Well, so this is what the Wall Street Journal reported is in this compact for academic excellence. The schools ban the use of race or sex in hiring and admissions, freeze tuition for 5 years. I thought that was interesting. Cap international undergrad enrollment at 15%. Require that applicants take the SAT or a similar test, and that they quell grade inflation. Phil, that all sounds good to me.
All of those are good things.
Yeah, all of those are good things. There's a lot to like there from the perspective of a reformer, but conservatives are echoing what Tom is saying. They're saying this is not a problem that arose over the last half decade when things got off the tracks during the summer of 2020 or COVID. They're saying, look, there is a social contract between the university and the state, where the state gives tax dollars and the university is supposed to provide an education as well as, research and all of these things that propel the United States forward and make us, better than everybody else. And they're saying, but wait a minute, since like the 60s and 70s, there's been a problem. And I'm not certain that a lot of those people who saw Betsy DeVos in the previous Trump administration try and fail to reform higher education at the margins now say, all right, well, like these small things that we agree with, that we like, that maybe Mitch Daniels would have instituted at Purdue University in Indiana, that's going to be enough. I mean, one thing that Linda McMahon told me is she was reading the Harvard Crimson, and she said it's unconscionable that just 3% of the faculty there at this publicly funded university is conservative. As self-identifies as that has to change. And then some of those things that May Mailman, the White House advisor who is quoted at length in that Wall Street Journal piece, is very excited about. Well, that's the law. You're not supposed to be able to discriminate against people in admissions based off of, race or gender. There's a Supreme Court decision on that front. So we'll see if the base goes along with Trump and says, hey, we love this, or if they're, pining for more.
Well, we got about a minute left here. Where does Linda McMahon come down on that? You said there's these two sort of camps within the White House. Which camp is she in?
When I asked McMahon if she was going to blink with Harvard, if she was going to let them off the hook and, take a splashy settlement, she said, we're going to follow through. Now, she might think that the deal that the president outlined in the Oval Office is good enough. And when he asked her if there was a deal in place, she said, yes, sir. He said, we just got to paper it out. I'm waiting for more details. But this is the defining fight that they've had with higher education. If they go soft on Harvard, maybe Princeton, maybe Brown, maybe some of these other universities who, yielded initially, maybe they start rethinking the terms of their agreement.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to leave it there. You're listening to Real Clear Politics. I'm Andrew Walworth. I've got Carl, Tom, and Phil Wegmann with me, and that's our program for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great evening, and thanks for listening.
Shoot, I wanted to call Real Clear Politics Carl Cannon's journalism trade school. I haven't flunked out yet, but I just keep getting held back. I'm on my 6th year.